The fantasy hockey takes don't stop on your daily source for hockey news. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, and the league-wide fantasy breakdown rolls through into the Tampa Bay Lightning and a little bit of a look into perhaps one of those sleeper teams that you need to be looking at. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Summer hockey coverage continues on the Hump Day edition of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast with Steal and Flip. Shout out and salute to the everydayers holding us down, making us your first listen every single day. We see you and appreciate you. Steele and I could not be doing this show without all our listeners and those everydayers. So much love for tapping into the pod. Make sure you smash that subscribe button on YouTube. Drop us that 5-star review wherever you listen to your content. The feedback, it helps us get better to put this money in your pocketbook. Speaking of which, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As the playoffs are over, sports keep going all summer long. FanDuel's hooking up customers with a boost or daily bonus. That's right. There's something for everyone all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Giddy up, Mr. Roden. Yesterday, I was a little bit all over the place. Mans are back in focus here, even though things are a little bit groggy for you after a bit of a head injury. That might be a poor Victor Hedman joke. However, no jokes about this Tampa Bay Lightning squad. We're going to continue our league-wide breakdown. Dallas Stars, Montreal Canadiens, Seattle Kraken already in the books. Steele and I are going team by team, west, east, and back again until we're done with every single squad in the NHL. Top 5 fantasy choices, breakout candidates, sleepers, maybe some players to avoid. Each team has a different layout, and this one, Steele, unlike yesterday's team, has some very elite options. And I mean, perhaps in Nikita Kucherov, the number one option. I don't think he goes over Connor McDavid, but do you take Nikita Kucherov number 2 in fantasy drafts? That's what I wanted to pose to you off the top. It's a big question, but what do you think about 144 points from Nikita Kucherov last year? That led the league, my friend.
He definitely puts himself in a conversation for top 5 off the draft board next season. There's still a lot of great names out there. Leon Draisaitl, Cale Makar, Nathan McKinnon, Austin Matthews being one, David Pastrnak. So he's a first-round pick regardless. He's a top 10 pick in the first round for sure. It's just going to be a little bit difficult to pinpoint exactly where he goes, where his ADP will be, but Nikita Kucherov will be the first Tampa Bay Lightning off the board after a star power performance of 144 points. Another player alongside Connor McDavid to hit 100 assists in a season as well. This is back-to-back seasons with 100-plus points for Nikita Kucherov. He continues to surprise us on what he does in the offensive zone, on the power play, and so much more in his game. So it's clear-cut. We know Nikita Kucherov is number 1 off the board. He's the number 1 player fantasy-wise for the Tampa Bay Lightning. For me personally, I think it's very interesting when you get from 2 to 5 off the fantasy board for Tampa Bay Lightning, because there's so many great players. Brayden Point, Jake Gensel being in the conversation now, Victor Hedman, and of course Andrei Vasilevskiy. Where will all these guys go? I think all 5 of those players that we just mentioned will be taken before the 5th round. I think Jake Gensel is going to be a very big surprise to this Tampa Bay Lightning top line as well. So for me, I actually do have Brayden Point being the number 2 guy. I think it could also be Andrei Vasilevskiy, depending where you want to go with your draft board and where you want to go with your fantasy team. Vasilevskiy, I think he can have a very good bounce back season after back surgery, missing the first 2 months last year. But personally, I'm going with Brayden Point at number 2 because he continues to dominate in the face-off circle. He continues to dominate in the center position. Face-off circle last year was not his greatest, 45.7% in the dot, but continues to dominate offensively. 95 points the year prior, 90 points last season. shoots the puck a ton, 227 shots. 12 game-winning goals for Brayden Point. So he's Mr. Clutch as well for this Tampa Bay Lightning team. Not bad at all. The power play points continue to strive as well. 15 power play goals, 17 power play assists. So for me, again, it's a little bit interchangeable on which direction you want to draft your team in, whether you want to take a star-sounded defenseman in Victor Hedman. You want to take a superstar goaltender in Andrei Vasilevskiy. But after Nikita Kucherov, I think Brayden Point needs to be that second Tampa Bay Lightning off the board.
Let's just lock in those two at 1 and 2, Steele, because after our list yesterday, I personally just need to make sure at least my first two targets for everybody are very clear. And I thought about this after yesterday's episode, and as much as my list was all over the place, if you're listening to these episodes, which I really do appreciate everyone out there who is doing so, even in their summer off time, there's no off time for fantasy GMs. And I have learned this the hard way. All of the guys and gals that have shown me up in fantasy leagues are never missing an opportunity to read into a good player, a developing prospect, or perhaps pieces that are fading. And I think one of the main takeaways, again, for me was if you can even get a couple of players out of our top 5 from each team or from the really good ones, and you're really sticking to these lists that Steele and I have for you, run back the tape, hit the channel if you missed any, pluck away at these top 5, and you are going to be doing just fine. Your format, how many GMs, all of these things will play into who you get and where. But the main takeaway is still get after these top 5 guys. So Kucherov 1. Point number 2, let's agree and leave it right there. Let's talk about the rest of this list, though, Steele, right after the break, because this Tampa Bay Lightning team, we talked about Jake Guentzel at length. Everybody has. But what is losing Mikhail Sergachev going to mean for this squad? I want to ask you about that. They also have a couple of pieces that came back in that trade, Steele. Connor Geeky, Morgan Geeky's brother, maybe a little bit more upside. Let's talk about it all right after the break. Today's episode, however, is brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patience, the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has you covered with everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors is your source. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for with the prices you need. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your parts are guaranteed to fit your ride every single time or your money back. With eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash, baby. With all the prices you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into that MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review, and make sure you go check out Locked On Sports Day's YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe for them as well. You can also find them on the free Amazon Fire TV channel app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. The team that we talk about today, a juggernaut that has been for many years now in the Atlantic Division, the Tampa Bay Lightning. So much to love about this team fantasy-wise. Nikita Kucherov, another dominating performance last year. Brayden Point, we both agree, will be second off the board. Yes. This is where it gets a really interesting to me is 3, 4, and 5. Because, again, which direction do you want to go with? I think a lot of people will probably lean towards Andrei Vasilevskiy maybe being that number 3 guy if you want a star goaltender. I know he had a bad year last year. Again, you got to take into consideration the back surgery, missing the first 2.5 months or 2 months in the NHL regular season. But still, he is still one of the best goaltenders in the NHL right now, a two-time Stanley Cup champion. So lots to love about Andrei Vasilevskiy. But Flip, I want to hear your opinion first on who do you think will be at the number 3 spot or who should be taken off the board for Tampa Bay Lightning at number 3.
So this goes right in the same vein as what I wanted to ask you about with the impact of Mikhail Sergachev. Because when I look at this blue line, Steele, as much as I have no doubts in actually Andrei Vasilevskiy himself, even though the back surgery and the numbers are concerning, he has been far too good, and I mean one of the best, not 3, 4, or 5, 1 or 2 in the NHL before last season. You would have been happy to see Andrei Vasilevskiy as the first fantasy goalie off the board and been cool with it. After last year, the injury, I get the apprehension. My main concern for him going off the board at 3 is what his blue line is going to do in front of him this season. Victor Hedman without Sergachev, we were all kind of looking at Sergachev to really take that step ahead and eat into Victor Hedman's minutes, his time, his everything. Victor Hedman was huge last year and showed that kid that it wasn't time yet. And then he has the injury, and there's obviously all of those intangibles. But when you look at, they bring in Ryan McDonagh, JJ Moser.
Bring back Ryan McDonagh.
You know, you don't hate those moves, but neither of those guys even combined are Mikhail Sergachev. Another year on an old Victor Hedman. And then you got Eric Cernak, Darren Radish, and Nick Perbix on the other side. My only concern for this team, Steele, I love John Cooper. I love Vasi, even with all those injuries or the injury concern we talked about. The forward group is looking that top line is just as good as anyone in the NHL not named Connor McDavid. If not, still as effective. Brayden Point, Gensel, and Kucherov, are you serious? That line is going to get there. So my concern, Steele, with Vasilevskiy being at 3 to bring it all the way back, because I only have him at 4, is I am taking Jake Gensel ahead of Andrei Vasilevskiy. In most leagues, unless I am like you said, in need of a goaltender, Gensel goes ahead of Vasilevskiy because I'm a little bit concerned about how many goals this Tampa Bay team lets up next year. They're going to get theirs on the offensive end, no doubt. But JJ Moser just came from the Arizona Coyotes, a bad team that allowed a lot of goals. Ryan McDonagh comes back from the Nashville Predators, who were a very stingy defensive team and is now going to eat a lot more minutes. Those are concerns for me. So all of that translated into, I'm done talking, Gensel at 3, Andrei Vasilevskiy at 4.
I'm with you. I'm taking Jake Gensel at 3 as well. This player still has the potential to get back to 40-plus goals in this league.
Why not?
And just
Kucherov
to bring up
feeding
Jake
him
Gensel,
the puck?
Yeah, Kucherov on the power play, Brayden Point on the power play, Victor Hedman on the power play, feeding Jake Gensel the puck. Just 3 years ago for Jake Gensel, 40 goals with 44 assists for 84 points, which was his career high. Again, multiple great seasons for him over the time with Pittsburgh, and then the split season with the Carolina Hurricanes as well. 84 points, 73 points, 77 points. I believe he can get to 40-plus goals in this league once again, because keep in mind, he only played 67 games last year and still finished with 77 points. He is going to have so much potential and so much opportunity getting the puck on the power play. We know the Tampa Bay Lightning is one of the best power play, if not the best power play in the National Hockey League right now. I believe they were actually last season the best power play.
They were nasty. 2 percentage points ahead of the next best power play team, which is kind of shocking, the Carolina Hurricanes.
That is very shocking. But the best power play regardless for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and Jake Gensel has the most opportunity right now playing with those elite players. So we both agree. I think a lot of people out there would agree. Kucherov, number 1, Brayden Point, number 2, and Jake Gensel, number 3, with the opportunity that he now has playing with these elite players. Not saying that he wasn't playing with elite players, but there's just so much more to be thrown around his way with Nikita Kucherov and the players we just mentioned.
Agreed.
However, I actually do have Victor Hedman at number 4 instead of Andrei Vasilevskiy.
Okay.
Look, with Mikhail Sergachev being gone and the signing of his 4-year, $8 million AAV contract, bounce back season after a down year of 42 points in 76 games, he bounces back in a huge way with 76 and 78 games, 102 blocks, 65 hits, 168 shots on net. I think he can continue to put the puck on net this next season and get those numbers bumped up a little bit. So for me, just like what you were saying about Andrei Vasilevskiy's, potential of being injured again, or the injury concern after the back surgery, and can he get back into form? A lot of mileage on his body, just like a lot of these other players for the Tampa Bay Lightning. You're always looking for a star-studded defenseman on every single team that you're able to draft. Victor Hedman is that guy. There's going to be a few other names that I mentioned for potential players in the third segment that to keep an eye out for going into next season as well. But we have the same names in the top 5. We have the same names in the top 3. However, I do have Victor Hedman ahead of Andrei Vasilevskiy. Vasilevskiy comes in at number 5 because, I mean, there's just so much to love about this team, and there's so much to love about Andrei Vasilevskiy as well.
You know how I feel about Victor Hedman. This is a player that I have. Actually, I had him in a couple of leagues last year, and it paid off last season. 76 points, plus 18, 102 block shots. I don't know if you reeled off all of these numbers, Steele, but 168 shots on net as well. This guy is a Norris Trophy winner, and I know a Conn Smythe winner as well.
Yeah.
Very recently. He's 33 years old, and I'll come out here and say it again, Steele. Fantasy, put it aside for a second if you want, because we're agreeing on that point. Victor Hedman is arguably one of the, not the most, but he is right up there as the most influential D-men in the league today. You can throw out Roman Josi, you can throw out Cale Makar. Of course, fantasy values vary there, different types of players. But if you're talking about D-men on your back end to make your blue line solidified, Victor Hedman is right up there in the conversation, and he has earned it. The concern now for me, and you know I got to throw out at least one keeper dynasty angle, and this is because I have him myself. He's going to be 30. Wait, let me check this. You and me with the ages. He is going to be 34 years old this year. He has over 1,000 games just in the regular season already on this body. He has a couple of serious injuries, and this team, because of how good they have played almost an extra full season of hockey over the last 3 or 4 seasons. And those things do matter in terms of fantasy and his ability to be in the lineup. Do I have any doubts in it this year? No, I don't. But if he has another really good season this year, Steele, and let's say halfway through he's killing it, I might start to look at a sell high situation for Victor Hedman, who is getting up there in age. I got to maybe rethink that one a little bit, like my Seattle Kraken list. But let's talk about some more under-the-radar names and options after the break or whenever you're ready.
I'll actually have to disagree with you on that for Victor Hedman's durability, because look, if you actually look at him over the last 4 years,
not durability, just all.
But he hasn't had injury concern over the last 4 years. He's only missed 10 games in the regular season.
Then I'll take it back. So thank you very much. And that's why you do it with me. Maybe not serious injury concerns. Maybe my main concern is maximizing on value for a guy that brings a lot of also name value. Victor Hedman, sexy name. You're going to get some pieces for him if you do decide to potentially go down the sell high angle. Thank you for reeling me back in once again, Mr. Roden. I'm ready for break whenever you are, pal. Hey, this full-time job thing, coming back in to do fantasy hockey at night, it's got my brain a little scrambled, pal.
Oh, both our brains are scrambled in different ways for both of us right now. We got so much to continue talking about, potential breakout players, potential targets on the Tampa Bay Lightning who are in the depth charts right now. I do want to talk a little bit about Andrei Vasilevskiy, even though we have talked about him.
Okay.
But we'll get to all of that and more coming up. This episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. I love sports. Flip loves sports. We know you all love sports because you're tuning into this podcast, and I love them so much I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs in the NHL and NBA are now over, we get fewer games really want to watch. I'm not huge into baseball, but I will bet on baseball because you know the gambling addiction we got here on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. The sports just aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking us all up, all us customers up with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. And thank you once again for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe button, hit the follow button, leave a 5-star review. Flip and I appreciate all that love and support you show us. Do it all. We love all the support you show us Monday through Friday. We're going to show some support to our 5th player, I guess your 4th player, but Andrei Vasilevskiy comes in at number 5 for me for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned just before we get to this last segment here. Andrei Vasilevskiy has just been so good throughout his entire career that, you know, even with the down season he had, I still love him to bounce back in a big way because you have to go all the way back to 2015 for his worst season besides last year, where he had a 910 save percentage and a 2.76 goals against average. He's been above 915 save percentage for 8 straight seasons now in the NHL. So a 900 save percentage and a 2.990 goals against average with what he had to deal with back surgery. You know, goaltenders don't get rest. They have to stand there every single minute throughout the 20 minutes of periods in each 3 periods. So, and that doesn't even include overtime and shootout as well. And again, the mileage on his body. So I think we all can agree that those are the 5 players for the Tampa Bay Lightning you're going to be targeting. Sure. All 5 players will be drafted probably ahead of the 5th round. I would even say the 4th round potentially. That's how good this Tampa Bay Lightning team is offensively.
I agree, Steele. It will be 4th or higher. They're too good.
It will be 4th or higher. So there's just too much elite star power on this offensive group, including Hedman and Andrei Vasilevskiy for the goaltending position. But a lot of names to keep an eye on in the depth chart. There's a lot
I'm intrigued to hear what you have to say.
There's a lot of familiar faces on Tampa Bay, but again, there's a lot of new faces or returning faces. JJ Moser, like you mentioned, Ryan McDonagh as well. Cam Atkinson is a guy that I want to talk about right now, actually.
Whoa.
And I just want to mention his name out there because, you know, struggled with injuries over the over the few seasons, you know, didn't play well last year, was getting less and less minutes under John Tortorella in Philadelphia. 2 seasons ago, he did have 50 points, 215 shots with 45 blocks and 20 hits. He drops down to 28 points in 70 games under John Tortorella, but this is a new team that he's with. This is a powerful team in the offensive zone. He's going to be playing in the top 6 group with Anthony Cirelli and Brandon Hagel. This gives him a lot of fantasy value as a depth player down the chart. So those 5 guys we mentioned, they're going to be taken ahead of the 4th round, 5th round. Cam Atkinson is a player I'm going to keep on my radar, keep on my list when we get down later into the 10th, 11th, 12th round as a breakout player potentially to be a guy. Because even last year, again, offensively, not much to love with the 28 points, still had 175 shots, had 46 blocks, 35 hits. The peripherals, you know, the blocks and the hits, that isn't part of his game. But when you go from the Philadelphia Flyers with the talent they had compared to the Tampa Bay Lightning, you got to be very intrigued about what that means for his fantasy value.
That I will agree with. I'm intrigued to see
maybe not breakout player. That might be the wrong term and the wrong
here we go.
Phrase to
this is why we do this for each other,
pal.
We do this for each other.
He could, again, breakout was the wrong term. Bounce back season. This is a guy that can easily
sleeper. Those are the terms.
This is a guy that can easily get back up to 50 plus points with the players that he's playing with right now.
Fair. Considering how high you're usually on your peripherals and how you usually get at me for looking at guys without the peripherals, however, I don't know about him being a draftable player. That might be a little bit of a reach. Is he intriguing? Is his point total, his offensive value intriguing? If he's going to get some looks, maybe somebody goes down on that.
I'm putting his name in the hat.
Maybe someone goes down on that top line or isn't clicking per se, and he swaps in. John Cooper isn't going to be shy about mixing in pieces alongside Kucherov and Point. Not saying Jake Gensel isn't going to stay there, but maybe Cam Atkinson gets some power play 2 time. Maybe we get lucky for your take and he gets a little power play 1 time. I don't know, but a serious injury like he had, considering his age as well now. And hey, here we go with the ages. He's already 35 years old. Good Gemini, by the way, Steele. It's Gemini season once again. This is a bold take for me, but I looked at him in the same way when I first looked at this lineup today. So I'm not going to come out here and hate at you 100% because he could be sneaky. I just don't see him as draftable unless it's literally a deep league and he is your last pick, or you see his deployment and you go out there and pick him up in the first week and you thank Steele later. Lastly, Steele, I just wanted to bring this up for this Tampa Bay Lightning team because you mentioned the power play. Last year, they were also 5th in overall scoring. This is a team that I don't see having any dip in offensive output. They also have Connor Sheary now, Nicholas Paul, Brandon Hagel, Anthony Cirelli, all of these really solid kind of middle 6, maybe bottom 6 pieces. Brandon Hagel had a sensational year last year, and this is where I wanted to wrap up this point. I am a little bit wary of him repeating almost 80 points. Is he still valuable in that 50 to 60 point realm? Could I be wrong? And maybe he does more? For sure, especially because I just said so much about what I like about the offense. But if we're talking about players to not avoid, again, Steele, and I got to hedge these bets here. I'm not avoiding Brendan Hagel. I'm just looking at him with kid gloves, and I'm very wary because 75 points feels like a definite reach for a guy that I expect back near where he's usually at, 50, 45 points, maybe 55 points. So if you're out there looking at Brendan Hagel going, oh, more minutes there, maybe dial that one back a little bit, Steele, because Brandon Hagel, I'm going to say, overachieved last year, and I would be a bit wary of where you take him next.
Overachieved for sure, but I'm going to go somewhere in the middle of those numbers you just threw out there. I'm going to say 55 to 60 points for Brandon Hagel. I think he definitely drops down from 75 points last year. I think Brandon Hagel will most likely be the 6th or 7th guy off the board for the Tampa Bay Lightning in those drafts. He's still going to be taken. He's still a draftable player. You've got to watch out where you draft him and make sure you're not reaching on him because of the overachieving season he had last year. One last player I do want to mention as a defenseman has potential to be a draftable player that could be your 5th or 6th defenseman off the board. Darren Radish is very surprising name to me. Whoa. Don't grimace right now. Don't grimace. Okay. Look, there's going to be 6 defensemen. You're going to want some bench players. Darren Radish has that potential right now after a first year in the league full time, 82 games, had 33 points, 101 shots, 105 blocks, 75 hits. His minutes are going to continue to grow now, playing on that top D pairing with Victor Hedman as Mikhail Sergachev is now gone. These are players to look out for. I'm not saying go out and draft them as your 3rd or 4th guy.
You're sounding like me on yesterday's episode. I appreciate it.
No, I'm not, because I'm throwing some names out there to keep an eye on your radar and have on your list.
What do you mean? I said the same thing yesterday on the Kraken about all those young guys you chirped me about. See, Shane Wright, the other D-man, come on.
You're trying to compare the Seattle Kraken to the Tampa Bay Lightning right now. You just said one of the best.
Are you chirping me on players that I was monitoring, just like you are on these players that are a bit of a reach as well? I would never compare the Tampa Bay Lightning to the Seattle Kraken. Also, please don't say I was that far off on yesterday's episode. It was just a little bit off still. Anyway,
a little bit off.
Darren Radish, up 975 grand. Here we go.
33 points, 82 points. He's going to get a lot of opportunity again under John Cooper, playing on that top D pairing with Victor Hedman. I'm just saying, throw his name in the hat. Keep him on your radar as your 5th or 6th defenseman, because again, this is a player that in the OHL, AHL, and had really good stats last year. 51 points in 50 games for the Syracuse Crunch. Back when he was playing with the Erie Otters, he had 80 points, 63 points. And when he was playing with the Hartford Wolfpack as well, had some pretty decent seasons under them. So he's played well in the OHL. He's played well in the AHL. He now just had his first season, full 82 games in the NHL. So I just want to throw his name out there as a player, defenseman to watch out for. He gets the peripherals. 33 points for a 27-year-old in his first season. And he's going to be playing with Victor Hedman, getting some big minutes. I'm looking at Darren Radish. I don't care what anyone else says. He's going to be on the radar for me. I'm not saying I'm going to draft him very high, but he's going to be on the radar if he's out there and I need a defenseman. Maybe a pickup in the first month or so, but he's definitely going to be on my radar.
If you're drafting Darren Radish, I have serious concerns about your team. However, I'm not saying you couldn't be right. We also really don't know who he's going to be playing with next season. So some of these things I got to poke holes in. Hedman. Yeah, we'll see about that. Also, entering the league at your first full season at 27 and telling people to draft him, Steele. Now you are sounding like me yesterday. Anyway, good episode once again. More teams around the league coming and more opportunities for Steele to make me look bad.
I'll have to check the receipts and see where you and I finished in the last 2 years of our fantasy draft.
Oh, you killed me. That's not even close.
I'm throwing those points out there. I'm checking the receipts, but we're going to continue to dominate this entire offseason. We're going to continue to break down every single team for fantasy targets, potential breakout players, potential targets to be wary about with injury concern. You get it all here on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast with your boy, Flip Livingstone over here. The head injury is getting to me. The head injury is now getting to me.
Is it because you're mad at Darren Radish? My bad, bro.
No, I'm still cheesed about the
man's name now.
I'm still still cheesed about the JT Miller slander from
Okay,
last year. But
that's
that's
fair,
your boy out there,
That's
Flip
fair.
Livingstone, your boy Steele Roan on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Thank you so much for making it the first listen every single day. Make sure you go check out Locked On Sports Day's YouTube channel. You can also find it on the free Amazon Fire TV channel app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Have a great day out there. Good luck with all your bets this summer, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.